Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about the Twilight Zone Season 4, Episode 4. It's called He's Alive! He's alive!
He's alive!
Just the once, for the record, but obviously it was very easy to make the Frankenstein joke. So, yeah, this is a Dennis Hopper starring episode. It feels a little alternate reality, but it isn't really. It's, it's very much set with our, real history intact, that it's set in then present day 1963. It's referenced in the episode. Mm-hmm. For some reason, there was just something about it early on with the tone that felt a little... I don't know if it's because they're shooting on a backlot, so it's obviously like a fake street, or if it's just the vibes that it had, but it already felt like things were a bit like a darker alternate reality to me. Mm-hmm. Which is an absurd thing to say, because clearly neo-Nazis and like are presented in this do exist, and possibly did at the time. I don't know too much about the 60s necessarily, but certainly I'm not surprised at the existence in a present day context. Sure. So, but yeah, so this is a story about a young character played by Dennis Hopper who is standing on street corners. He is spouting rhetoric. He is speaking out against minorities. He is wearing a uniform that is very Nazi-esque and has a couple of friends who are doing it with him. But he is mostly made fun of. He is mostly even attacked for spouting his hate speech. But things take a Twilight Zone-esque turn when a mysterious figure in shadow starts giving him some advice about how to win over the crowd and about how to spread his word and cause. And I don't know if it's just because it's, remastered in HD that it's really obvious who it is, even though he's in shadow. But it's very clearly Hitler. Like, Hitler is coming back from the beyond to give him some advice on how to become the new Hitler. That's what's happening. I
would say it's 90% clear that it's Hitler at first, because he has a bit of a Transylvanian accent.
Sure.
It was a little bit like Dracula had come to... Yeah.
There's a couple of times when he's speaking to him, and obviously he's in complete darkness with the lighting and the shadows, but sometimes he'd move around a little bit and you could see just the edge of his mustache sort of peeking into the light or something with that. You just get a little bit of it.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I don't know if anybody would consider it being anybody else,
Sure, yeah.
I say Transylvanian, there's a bit of German accent in there.
I think it's intentional that the audience gets very quickly who this is, but it's the character, of course, isn't going to assume that this is like a ghost, or isn't, because it's someone who's dead, right? So he has natural reason not to just assume that this is Hitler, because he's living in, for his context, the real world. We were watching a TV show though, so we just go, and it's the Twilight Zone especially, so we're like, that's Hitler.
Yeah. It's the ghost or whatever of Hitler. The spirit of Hitler.
Yeah. It's almost like you're watching Dexter, the way Dexter's dad comes to speak to him about
I've never
killing
watched
people.
That show.
Yeah. So it's his inner demon, his inner... Dexter called it his dark passenger. That's what he called it, his dark passenger.
I think that makes sense, though, in the context of what Rod says in the beginning and end of this for his monologues. It's just like keeping the spirit of Hitler alive.
Well, not wanting to, but just admitting that it is alive, and we have to always be aware of it.
Yeah.
Because because the way you said that, it was like, we have to keep the spirit alive.
It's almost like he's a demon.
Yeah.
And he's just latching on to anybody who is spouting his message.
Well, honestly, that was one of the things that stuck out to me the most about this episode, is his closing narration is maybe the most direct. This is the message. I am going to spell it out to you because I believe you need to hear this, that he's ever had.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure Rod served in World War II. That's why there's been so many anti-war episodes of the show. And
I'm sure I've said this every single time, but it's kind of weird and blows my mind a little bit when I think about how not that long it was at this time. This has not even been 20 years since the Second World War ended yet.
Right.
It's only 18 years at this point when this aired, since it finished. Right. So, it's still, when you think about what happened 18 years ago is 2004.
Still reeling from 9/11, I guess.
I mean, 2004, that doesn't seem long way ago at all. Maybe if you're 12, it seems like an eternity ago, but for anyone who was already over the age of 10, it's like, oh no, that's practically yesterday.
Anything after the millennium, yeah.
Oh yeah, I still think of the 80s as being
recent.
Yeah, I still think of the 80s as being like 20 years ago, and I'm like, oh shit, it's like 40 now. Damn it.
Yeah, my parents are in the same boat as you.
I am younger than you. Don't you start.
They're just stuck in the 80s, that's all.
Okay. But yeah, no, I thought it was really notable because I feel like usually his speech at the end is a little bit of mystery, a little bit of like, a bit of intrigue, and blah, 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 the Twilight Zone. And he'll have like a little thing. This was more prolonged, and there's shots of like basically Hitler's shadow walking like down buildings and in the streets, and Rod's saying something to the effect of, you know, he's still very much alive. He's in every corner. He lists off like 5, 6 like cities across the US and says he's in all these cities. When someone speaks out against a minority or someone tries to convince you of hate, he's there. And he's making it very clear that these ideas and hateful people will continue to exist, and we have to be wary of them. We have to be able to fight back against it. And it felt, sadly, still absurdly relevant in 2022.
What?
But also just like really direct, and like, I am not going to like this episode is not subtle anyway, but this final speech is like, I am not hiding behind a metaphor here. I am making it very clear what I am saying to you so that you understand the point of this episode. Because clearly he thinks it's important and he believes in it. Yeah.
I like the idea that, you know, I think World War II is a very, I don't want to say popular war, but, you know.
Oh, yeah, popular is a weird word, but yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's easy to watch stuff about World War II. It's easy to watch or learn, you know, when you learn world history and stuff, to learn about the subject of World War II, because there's this clear villain. There's like this mega boss that had to be defeated. And not a lot of wars seem to have that. They're more confusing as to why we're fighting. But in this case, you know, there's a true enemy. And he's got a face, and all of his henchmen wear like very evil looking uniforms, and they act evil. So, you know, it's a very, it's strange to put it in these terms, but it's a very easy war. So,
well, there's a simple, easy to understand villain. That's the key thing. Right. I just watched last week. I watched the newest Kingsman movie, which is a prequel set in World War One, and I learned about World War One in school. It was a big chunk of my high school. One of the years was devoted heavily to World War One, how it started, what it was like fighting, and the aftermath of it.
Yeah, and I'd forgotten, for you guys over there.
And I'd forgotten so much of it, and I'd remembered watching this movie how convoluted it was, because it's like the kings of like 3 different countries were like relatives. They're all cousins.
Yeah. You don't remember the Archduke Ferdinand in Sarajevo?
I remember the Archduke Franz Ferdinand. I'd forgotten that they'd actually attempted assassination and failed once, and then it happened the second time. I didn't remember there was a false attempt first, or a failed attempt. It'd be a better way of putting it. So it's a really convoluted war where it's this domino effect where once one country got involved, another country had to get involved on behalf of someone else, and it's all very, very confusing. The Nazis are just evil bastards. It's really easy and simple to understand.
So easy. That's why they make such great movie villains, and you know, television villains also. So I like the idea that the reason that fascism hasn't been successful is because there hasn't been another Hitler. So like these rise of these mini groups and stuff, people just don't have the charisma that he did. He's not able, they don't have the ability to speak like he did in order to gain followers or to seduce people into the dark side, you know?
And that's something that this episode really tackles, and on the context of the real world. I mean, there's people who have some of that charisma. There's people who obviously do inspire some people, but ultimately, there's not been another one of him. And obviously the memory of what happened in World War II makes it, at least, it's getting harder, but it's, at least for a long time, it was easier to dispel it quicker, because you could say, no, this is reminding us of that. We have to stay away from that and avoid that ever happening again. And that's when it gets scary, when things get nudged a little bit closer in some ways. But I think to that point, like, this episode very much, like, obviously this word wasn't used at the time, but it does, like, as they're describing this main character, as this old friend is talking to young Dennis Hopper and talking about what he was like as a boy, all I could think was, this is about an incel. Like, obviously that word didn't exist in 1963, but that's what this is about. This is about an incel who has become a fascist extremist. It becomes more extremist over the course of the episode. That's what this is.
This guy definitely would be on some Reddit groups, some forums.
Reddit, try 4chan and 8chan.
4chan.
I mean, not that there's not some bad stuff on Reddit.
He would have moved on from Reddit.
Yeah,
right.
Reddit's like the entry level. Like there's.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a movie that I think about a lot is Jojo Rabbit. Just the idea of wanting to be part of a club. You know, like the kid was just indoctrinated before he really knew that he was doing anything bad, because he just wanted. He just liked the Boy Scout element of it, and like, yeah, there's monsters out there, and they're the Jews, and we gotta defeat the monsters. But like, you know, obviously when he's put in front of a girl who's just a girl who's trying to fight for her life and survive, is you know, things get. He has that moment where he goes, "Are we the baddies?" all of a sudden. So I do think about that a lot when I watch these.
I love that you've probably. I mean, I've not even seen this, but I love that you've probably not seen what that comes from. But you're familiar.
I have seen it, yeah.
Oh, you have seen it, okay. But
I've just seen that. I haven't seen the rest of their skits.
Yeah, you've just seen that little GIF. That's what I mean.
Well, no, I've watched that whole like little skit that they did.
Okay, you've seen the whole sketch, but okay.
Yeah.
But like, even people, I feel like most people haven't even seen that whole sketch, but they've seen that GIF of Dave Mitchell in the Nazi uniform go, "Are we the baddies?" Like just that moment of like absurd self-awareness. No, I thought of Jojo Rabbit as well, because it's hard not to, because of the premise, and this guy's it basically starts taking advice from an imaginary Hitler. That's effectively what's happening here. Now, you obviously in this case it represents that the idea sticks around, right? And that's what this ghost, if you want to call him that, is embodying. But it's hard not to think of Jojo Rabbit, and in many ways I would say this is a more serious, non-satirical version of Jojo Rabbit, because obviously Jojo Rabbit, it presents it to the lens of a child. It has this very upbeat energy to it, but it has
even Hitler is like a clown, played by Taika Waititi.
But by the end of it, of course, it has some very poignant things to say, and it is a very heartfelt film, and has a lot of messaging, a lot of depth to it. This obviously has depth. It's a lot more on the surface though, because like Rod's not pulling punches here. He's making it very clear what this character is, and he is, and yeah, Rod did write. I was just checking there. Rod did write this episode, so he's not like it's just tackling the subjects head on. You have this character who, when after he's had a fight with some people who pick a fight with him for the hate speech at the start, and the police don't like him very much. Very notably, one of the policemen here was black. I think that was a very intentional choice. Even though he has no lines of dialogue, I think it was very intentional, just to show someone who is the target of his rhetoric in one of the scenes.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, because he brought up like the government, if you follow the money, it's going to Africa, and it shows the black officer.
Yeah, it was Africa,
and then it says Jerusalem.
Yeah. I think Palestine might have been mentioned as well. Yeah. And
then shows a guy who I don't know, maybe is Jewish, and then he says and also the Vatican, and then so like I guess he's against Catholics also, and so a woman kind of turns around in shock in that scene.
Yeah, so he goes back and he's got this old man who's like his old friend, but this old man is clearly someone who lived through World War II and has some bad memories.
In Germany too.
Yeah. He's got an accent. Yeah, his name's Ernst, so he's Ernst Gans. He's got a very German name.
Ernest.
So there's a lot of stuff with him in the episode where he's like, I've seen this before. I recognize what this is. Like but he like does not approve of what he's doing on the streets when he sees his uniform, and Dennis Hopper knows this because he takes it off. Like he takes off his jacket before he goes to see him, but when he notices it anyway, and he tries to say, look, this is, I lived through this, there's millions of people died. He says the things you expect him to say, but then of course it's that night where he sees Ghost Hitler for the first time, and he's like, this is what you have to do. You have to, if they're scared of something, then be scared with them, be alongside them.
You have to make yourself a part of the crowd. It's clearly just trying to tell you, beware of the charismatic leaders who talk like an angry mob in a crowd, who are just putting on a show to get you all riled up.
Yeah, it's much tougher to actually convince people that they're incorrect or that they're being too harsh in their thoughts than it is to just, oh yeah, I agree with you completely. Yeah, that's doing exactly what you're already saying. But just manipulate it into what your specific agenda or goal is. I think obviously that's a big part of it. But I think it's also, if you look at this as a character study of the main character, there is also this tragedy element of the person who becomes this, and the person who is influenced in this, because he's becoming the charismatic leader through this influence, but there's also this tragedy of how did he become this in the first place, of like someone becoming the extremist, of becoming the someone. In this case, yeah, he's kind of tapping into that charismatic side and strategic side of a Hitler, but there is also, why is he this way in the first place, and the sadness of him going further down this deep end to the point where he does, you know, this ghost Hitler ultimately tests him to say, you have to kill the old man because he's starting to speak out against you. He's you know, he stood up in front of everyone and called out your politics. You have to kill him. So, and
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, like, you can watch his growth where he's becoming more and more powerful, because like not only is his following getting larger, or when he speaks, like there's more people there, more and more people are showing up to it instead of being disgusted by him, but also like his other members are like doing things for him, like really evil things for him. They're just like, yeah, you're our leader, we follow you.
Yeah, it's not the first person that dies in the episode. One of his own team gets killed because Ghost Hitler tells him that they need a martyr. So whoever's the weakest and the least useful, like, pick him. And, you know, he lies to the other guy and says, hey, he's talking to the police, he's going to betray us, take him out. And the other guy like agrees to do this. Obviously at that point he's already crossed the line, I think, morally for us as the audience, but obviously the personal, no, kill this person who's your friend, who was trying to convince you of better, who was trying to look out for you, and has been trying to do the right thing all episode. When he goes and kills him, and he thinks he's powerful because he's pointing a gun at him, and the old man is this very powerful character who says, I'm not scared of what you stand for anymore, and I'm not scared because you're pointing a gun at me. My beliefs and what I think is right and wrong is not going to be questioned or weakened by you thinking you've got power because you've got a show of force. And you know, so there's actually some really strong, uplifting kind of like stance against this kind of thing, like in this episode. And of course, the tragedy of the whole thing is that the first murder, the murder of their friend that he was behind, the police show up to question him about it, and he tries to run, and the episode ends with him getting shot by the police and dying. And he's like, but no, because one of the things that Hitler convinced him of is that he's made of steel, that he's bulletproof, that you're immortal because you're like me. And then as he's lying there dying from the gunshots, he's like, but I'm immortal, I'm made of steel. And it's this idea that you convince yourself you're important because you devote yourself to this extreme cause, and you think, oh, I'm better than just humans, I'm better than the others, and I can live forever, I am. Like, no, you get shot down just like anyone else.
Yeah, I really like that point with the fact that he's confused as to why he's dying, where he really believed, like, I don't know if he ever would have believed before that he was made of steel, but you know, like, the more things that like Hitler talked to him about, which is a weird sentence, but the more things that like Ghost Hitler was like, the more fantastical things that he convinced him of, like, he just went down this rabbit hole of like, yeah, this must be true also because the other things you said worked, and I am special, and this makes me special, and this makes me important, and I'm like holier than thou than all the rest. And it's that shock and realization of, if this is a lie, then maybe all the other things were a lie too.
Yeah, and when the old man talks about him as a child, he talks about this kid who's scared, who's quiet, who doesn't really interact with people, and then he is seduced with the idea of you can be powerful, you can be the one that everyone listens to and cares about. And obviously not everyone's going to be able to transition into public speaker like he is, but some will and some can. And sure enough, like, he is seduced by that power of feeling like he is bigger than everyone else now. It's the total opposite of how he felt as a child. So at some level, this is just a complete wish fulfillment, or like answering or counterbalancing how he felt as a kid. And that's why he's so just enraptured by it and like can't give it up, why he's so addicted to it, because it is just not how he was before.
And what a great to get a young Dennis Hopper to do it, because obviously we know what he is capable of, in, you know, nowadays, or what he has been capable of. I don't think he acts anymore.
Well, he's dead, but
oh, he did die. That's right, I forgot.
I don't think he acts anymore. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I think he retired before he stopped acting also. I thought I remember like a retirement thing, but
I mean,
that's pretty funny.
He was in something. Oh, that's himself, so maybe that doesn't count. He was in something as late as 2016, and he didn't die too long after that, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, still, what a great get, because he is a great actor, and we know what he's capable of, even though when we first see him, he's definitely not having an easy time getting his thoughts out and getting the crowd riled up to his cause. So, like, it's easy for us to know, like, okay, yeah, but Dennis Hopper is definitely capable of playing a charismatic bad guy.
Oh, for sure, yeah. He's not hamming it up quite as much as I would come to love. You know, pop quiz, hot shot. Interactive TV, Jack, wave of the future.
What, no Waterworld quotes?
I only quote quality films starring Dennis Hopper.
Like Super Mario Brothers. That is definitely a quality good time watch.
I'll have a large pepperoni pizza, lizard's tail, hold the dinosaur egg, whatever the order was. Oh dear. Yeah, no, I was just looking at his IMDb because I was curious, like, is he a name at this point when he's on this show, or is this before he became like someone who knew him? But he's got, I don't know if he was famous before this, but he did have a lot of credits, and some of them are movies where he's got named roles. He's not just prison guard number 3, you know, like he is
quite young in this, or at least he looks very young.
Yeah, you know, he's in a lot of TV episodes as well, admittedly, before this, but he was in, for example, what was the one that I recognized? He was in Giant, and he's got a name, and Giant's like a movie with I'm clicking on it to remind myself, but you know, that's a movie I've heard of. Like, people, you know, James Dean, Elizabeth Taylor's in that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously it wasn't the lead because it was those characters or those actors, but I just wonder like how much of a name he was before this, or if this is, because I know like Easy Rider onwards is more kind of like when I know he became a name where people knew who he was. But curious. I never actually asked the question, though. Did you like the episode?
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. I actually really liked that it was a longer episode, too, because I think you needed it. I think it needs to be, I don't know, I like seeing the transition of him become this, like, charismatic bad guy. Yeah,
I like the episode as well. I think it's maybe more of a straight story. Obviously, the only real Twilight Zone element is the ghost Hitler talking to him.
The supernatural Hitler, yeah. Yeah,
but everything else, and you could argue that even, that doesn't have to be Twilight Zone in the sense that in anything else you could argue that's just in his mind, so it doesn't really matter, but that's not a complaint. I'm just kind of pointing out how straight the story is, and probably to its betterment, because like I said, it's got a clear message, a clear warning that it wants to present to people, and I think it accomplishes that by and large. So, yeah.
Yeah. Pretty strong episode, I thought.
Yeah, good dark dramatic episode, and anchored with a good performance by both Dennis Hopper and honestly the actor who plays the old man Ernst. I think he's pretty good too.
I think so as well. Yeah, he's got a lot of sympathy, and he also reminds me of like the stories that Schwarzenegger talks about when he did those like 2 videos, one after the January 6th riots, and then another one after or the one that he did to the message as a message to Ukraine, and just talking about like his father and what he went through and how he was a changed man after World War II. And I don't know, this actor kind of reminded me of like maybe someone like Schwarzenegger's dad, who just was so full of shame, although according to, you know, Schwarzenegger, his dad used that shame as a vessel for, you know, being hurtful to his family. But like it all comes from being so invested in something and just being so ashamed after it was all over. I don't know what this character, Ernst's character, like we don't really get a lot of his background, but you can kind of, you know, infer from context that he was in Germany and maybe was on the wrong side.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good performance from both actors that really anchor the whole thing. So Yeah, good episode. You know, it's funny, like I would say out of the 4 episodes we've done of this season with the longer episode, only one I think's a bit mediocre, and that was the one on the boat. I think the other 3 have all been pretty good, to be honest.
I think so too. Yeah.
To the point where I'm not so sure why the seasons look down upon it. Maybe it's all downhill from here. Maybe this is literally like where it all starts to fall apart. I don't know. But so far I'm not having a bad time by and large. 4 episodes in, so
me neither.
We'll see how it goes. So the episode that Rod teases for next time is called Mute, and it's about a mute girl who, well, I don't know, did you skip over? You didn't want to see the clips? Did you avoid them?
I watched it.
Okay.
It looks like a fire starter episode.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, there's like firefighters like rescuing her from this house that's just burned down, and the vibe I got from the clip was that she probably started the fire.
Yeah.
So
I was getting some Stephen King vibes off of this one.
Yeah. So I'm curious. It looks like kind of a creepy kid horror episode. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, she doesn't speak.
No,
that's because it's called Mute.
Yeah, the title kind of implied that.
Yeah, well, they talk about it in the little teaser also.
Yeah.
And there's some teacher that's onto her.
Yeah, some teachers think she's fishy. All right, so let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at @mail_Fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the show, where can I do that, Tara?
Why, yes, Peter. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MalfuzzTV, where you can donate as low as $1 per month. And when these episodes start coming out regularly, you can get them 6 days early or a week early for just $5. And $1 gets you bonus. It's been a while for me. $1 tier gets you other bonuses. So please check that out. Thank you.
It's been a while. You did Babylon 5 last week.
Well, I'm all screwed up because I didn't do my usual. That's right, Peter.
That's how important that is.
Yes.
Plus, you still kind of said it. You all you did differently was go, "Why, yes, that's right, Peter." Like you put in a "why, yes" before it. That's all you did differently.
Anyway, thanks for listening.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes to break her. That's just the addition of "why, yes."
I'm sorry. I've got Kelly Bundy brain.
Oh dear. All right. Thank you very much once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV in the Twilight Zone.